little change of environment. I know. Anyway, so I'm currently in Mitchell, South Dakota with CMB. We're doing a sprayer demo week, kinda. So it's over the next few days. Anyways, this video is a follow-up video to something I posted this past winter where my dad and I sat in our shop and we just talked about our family history, kind of how our family got started farming, a bunch of equipment related stuff, and I showed a bunch of pictures. Anyways, I said I was going to have a follow-up video showing the shop and the grain setup where my dad grew up, kind of the fifth generation. I guess fourth and fifth generation. So that is what this video is. Now there's going to be a follow-up video to this showing our current setup and kind of how we transitioned between the two, because there's a lot that's missing from this one, or from this farm place that you guys are going to be seeing in this video that's currently at the new place that got moved. So there's that. So enjoy. There's a lot of family history in this video. My dad tells a lot of stories. In fact, the last story in this video was about how him, his brother, and two strangers had to stay the night in their barely heated farm shop during a blizzard. So, yeah. Enjoy. Oh, also, I got supplies for the giveaway. So, I'm making a dedicated video to that probably a couple videos from now. So, hit subscribe button so you don't miss it.
Okay, so the whole farm is kind of an interesting story. As we've mentioned before, my dad was an auctioneer. He was starting out, of course, hardly had any business, and he was hungry. He needed. Anyway, he heard that this guy here was thinking of retiring, or the land might be for sale. I don't know. So Dad came to see the guy about having an auction. So Dad went in the house and was talking with the guy, and the guy said, "I don't want to have an auction. I don't know the reason. He just didn't want to have an auction." So anyway, they visited a bunch more, and the guy told my dad, he says, "Why don't you buy it?" And my dad says, "Well, I don't have any money." So then they talked some more, and then they talked about the farm, and then he kept saying, "Why don't you buy it?" So at that time, they had nothing sold like that anymore, but there was a lot of contract for deeds. That was kind of the norm, that you'd pay so much money down, and then you made payments on it with interest to the buyer. That's how most land was sold 50 years ago. So anyway, they talked a while later, and I think they kind of made some kind of agreement. And then Dad laughed. He says, "I got to get Mom's okay. Ma's okay. Ma, get in here. I think we just sold this young man our farm." And so my dad actually grew up the township northeast of here. But land was cheaper in this township, mainly because I think it's of the water issues. And this was a wet farm, terribly wet. So anyway, Dad, I don't know how he got the down payment together. He always had, I think his brother and his wife, they were probably married by then. I think she worked, but she always had little cash. So anyway, Dad came up with the down payment and bought the farm. So this kind of became our base, even though we've never lived where we farmed, because this kind of became our base, because my uncle lived a mile down the road, and it was terribly wet. My dad and uncle, they bought a scraper and they made waterways to kind of get it somewhat farmable. And so that's how our base of operations kind of ended up here.
Yep.
Dad had a hired man in the 70s that lived in the house that was here.
There was a house right here, and tore it down 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
Yeah, 7 to 10, I suppose. Then there was actually another house along the road that Dad tore down by hand.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
And there was a cattle yard here. I think I got an old photo of the place from way back. It was never much.
I think we have a few photos. I'll kind of sporadically put them up.
It was never much of a place. So anyway, then.
Well, then this was your main shop.
So the first thing that Dad did, he built this shed. They built this shed. I'm guessing I don't know when he bought the farm, 67. So they must have built this shed right away.
Okay.
That's a little Butler grain. They're a neat building. You can fill them right up with corn, and the walls, you don't have to reinforce them or anything. And I think that's what they did. They were putting corn in it right away and then storing machinery in there. So then he started building these 4 Sioux bins. I don't know what they are, if they're 5,000 bushel bins, 7, I don't even know. So these are the first grain bins Dad built. There was 4 of those. I think he filled them with an auger.
Okay. Yep.
And then when I was a little boy in '75, he built the leg. So, can you won't get inside? You won't see anything.
We can, but
Okay. So my brother was, boy, he wasn't very old at the time. 14, 15. He did all the cement work in here. Built the forms. Him and a high school buddy did all the cement work. And used to be a grain pit here. There used to be a grain pit here that we fought water its entire life. That's every morning we came and we started by sending somebody down the pit with a pail and a rope, and we drug the pail out. Of course, there was always rotten corn, soybeans, rats.
if you guys don't know, rotten grain is the worst smelling. It's terrible.
So anyway, Dad expanded pretty quickly then in the late 70s. And of course, in the grain economy, or the farm economy crashed, and added on quite a bit to this. We added on like every year he added a bin here. This is a 30,000, I think it was a 33 and a 36,000. They're in a row here.
Yep, there's 2 bins right here that are no longer here.
They'll be part of your other videos.
Yep, they'll be part of the other video.
And then we built, I think this one was first. There was a 70,000 bushel bin here. We filled with an air system to get grain to it. And then there was the other one was just a little bigger where the fuel barrels are now.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, that was the, and we did a lot of it. I mean, Dad hired the original one done, but everything else we pretty much did ourselves. Air piping, somehow we got up there. I still don't know how we got it up there. With a chain and a rope and a pulley. My brother had a high school friend that wasn't scared of heights, so he kind of hung up on the bend. And we used to have a dryer here also. So then, like the earlier video, we talked about the government grain storage program.
Yep.
So that was kind of, you got paid, the corn was worth so little, but the government had like a reserve, so they paid you storage every year you held it.
Mm-hmm.
So the cute thing was we built the bin every year, but we never emptied them. So yeah, you built the 3 bins here, you built the 2 bigger bins, and then we built that 60 by 120 shed. So we had a grain package, they called it. That's a wood shed, so they had a grain package, you called it. That was part of it. It was extra post. But we needed it to hold more, so we cabled it. We spent days. There's cables low, high, they were crisscrossing. And
the cables, some of the cables are still on the floor.
Yeah, so I think rather than putting 8 foot in, we put 12 foot of grain in it.
Okay.
And I think to this day the walls, it's not bad, but it holds a little more in the middle than it does on the top. So anyway, yeah, that had corn in it for 4 or 5 years, and that same thing, so our summers, what they amounted to was, grain stores, but only so well, and then there was bugs and everything else, so it was, you'd get the air at the back, and you'd have a spot you thought might be getting a little bad, then you'd climb up the side you'd back out a spot, and then you'd move it to another bin, and the shed was the same way. We were constantly dragging hose in there to suck out a spot that happened to get a little, was starting to get a little bad. So, yeah, we didn't spend our summer hauling grain. We spent it preserving grain. But that was kind of the key to our surviving the tough period of the 80s. So anyway, the pit here we redone how many times? The original pit, we kind of kept building a steel bottom in it, trying to get it so we could get good water control, great water control underneath, and it would work for a little bit. Then we were always back to bailing it out. So finally, we went to a conveyor. That wasn't that long ago, 8-10 years ago. We went to a conveyor here, and so we don't have any more water issues. But in a short period of time, it just seemed like we kind of, well, the problem was the conveyor wasn't, when we were running we were storing all beans here, and when we started running the two bigger combines, the leg we could combine it faster than we could dump it.
Yep.
And without that pit to take that excess off, it became kind of a struggle. So
We rarely use this anymore, right? I mean,
I've got some rye in here. I don't think I don't know if we're going to use it. Whoops, sorry. I don't know if we're going to use it for the organic at all or not. Of course, if it's got to rain, if it don't rain, I don't think storage issues are going to be a problem this year.
yeah.
So anyway, yeah, this was the first. Well, then we could go look at the.
The original shop.
Well, it used to be our shop.
Some days I'm so spoiled. Some days I think that we're starting to grow out of our current shop, and then I see what they.
We had a shop. I mean, a lot of people didn't have a shop.
Yeah, true.
So, first of all, the backstory on the shop. Dad built this building we already talked about. Was such a good building. It's all steel stringers that you can fill right up with corn. The walls don't move, and so the same company started selling a little more of a discount building, the slat wall building, and it wasn't much of a building. So this too, I think, was a government loan. Dad bought the building, and I think in order to, and of course he put it up himself, and he only had, there was a certain cutoff date the building had to be completed to meet the terms of the loan.
Okay.
And I think the shed had to have cement in it. Maybe he probably got the loan with a cement floor, so the floor had to be completed. So my dad was down to like 3 days. and it wasn't, Dad was always working. He had the auctions. He just,
Yeah, he's
probably a little bit of a procrastinator on some stuff, but he always, but anyway, he wasn't that he was lazy. He just was always busy. So my dad poured the floor by himself in a day. It's a 50 by 100 shed. So it's what he did. We had an old Alice Chalmers loader that my uncle had made. It was reversed.
Oh, that one?
Yeah.
The one that I was always scared of as a kid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could lift a lot with it. It was good, but you know, it had no power. It was a shaft to a pulley to a chain to another shaft to a. I mean, I used to keep my feet up to try to steer it. So he made he stuck some arms out with a 2x8 on the front. Then he just had the trucks back in and dumped the cement, and then he leveled it with the loader. So this became our shop, and
It's not much of a building anymore, I can tell you that. I mean,
and when it rained when you worked, there was rivers. Well, same thing. You know, now when we build a building, you build it up, get it out of the water. But
yep.
at that time, nobody did that, and he didn't have the earth moving equipment or the money to bring in a bunch of clay or gravel. So he built it on the top of the ground. It's higher that end than that end. So yeah, the water kind of ran through it, and we just had a curtain. We had a tarp between the front and the back.
That'd be that right there.
Yep. And the heat, we just had a blowtorch type heater, so you could maybe get it up above freezing when you were working in the winter. Of course, it screamed at you all day. They weren't much fun. But anyway, we used this up until the year your brother was born.
97.
And it
When
all
was it built, roughly?
75, 6.
So you used it for 22
plus years. Yeah.
22 years.
And we used to get all our equipment in the back somehow. I don't know how we stored everything in the back of the shed. So it actually worked pretty good. We were building our new shop, and my uncle's shed burnt down. So he kind of, as we were moving out, he kind of used this, or no, maybe, yeah, it's all in the same month or two. So he was using it all day, every day. So he tried to heat it he kept it heated during the. He left the heat on at night, and we had a snowstorm. And being a flat wall building, we think is what happened. It was warm enough that the snow stuck to the roof. Mm-hmm. So we came down, but that's when the building became junk. It collapsed all these purlins in the front. We came down one morning, the snow had caved it in.
Yeah, you can see there's a buckled there, that one's buckled.
And we patched a bunch of them to keep.
These are all buckled.
Yeah, see, we patched some of these,
Yep.
trying to get it somewhat usable. But it was never a great building anyway. But yeah, the floor really isn't that bad for.
No,
But like, I don't know, you probably won't see it in the back. There's some pretty big links.
And then this was the old office.
Yeah, like see, I think you could. This would kind of work as one of them roller skating
Yeah, no, it's
or skateboarding.
the.
And I think it's sunk more than it used to be. But I know this always used to have water sitting in it.
I don't know if you guys.
They won't see it.
You can't see it, but it's. I know that chisel plow tire is about 6 inches lower than that chisel plow tire.
So yeah, it functioned, and he got his low interest loan, and we had a building, and then like I said, a lot of. In the 90s, even very few farmers had nice shops. There was a lot of guys still working out in their yard, working out in front of their door. We at least could work out in the sun. So it served its purpose, and that we at least had something. A lot of people had nothing.
Mm-hmm. And it's still serving a purpose. It's not really.
Yeah, I mean, still you don't want to have the stuff out in
some of our.
the weather.
Yeah.
Got my screener,
Yeah. I don't keep the gators out of the sun and the rain and
the tile stuff.
this tile stuff and applicator bar back there, which we actually got to get out, and chisel plow and whatever all that is.
So then, if you want to continue the story, you have the snuff light.
Yeah.
So then, what makes the story interesting too is that the farm across the road. So the guy in the next section by the dredge ditch was actually a relative of ours.
Okay.
And him and Dad got along fine, and he had water issues, and Dad had water issues. And there was a farm in between here. So the guy came to Dad to wonder if he's interested in the farm. And Dad knew he needed that farm because he had an agreement with Ivan down by the dredge ditch that if they could they would go together and build their own waterway open ditch to take care of the water from this farm. So the guy came to Dad to sell the farm, and Dad kind of knew that he was going to use whatever he gave him for price to work against whoever.
Yep.
Had a couple other neighbors knew would probably be interested. So I don't know the exact number, but Dad gave him like way over. That was in 72-3, right before things really went wild with the soybean market. So I think Dad made him a wild offer, but said it's only good. It's only good for an hour. And if you go to see anybody else, it's not good. So that's how he bought that farm, and then they built the waterway, and it made this quite a bit better farm, because this farm, out of a 280 acres, it would drown, I'm sure, 60 to 70 acres yearly, almost yearly. So Dad said he didn't have the money for that farm either, but he gained so many acres here, it made that farm, even though he overpaid for it, pretty reasonable. Well, then within a couple of years, that's when I think land was going for like $300 to $500, and he paid $700 for that one. And but then within a year, land was bringing $1,500 because of the soybeans went so wild. So it all kind of worked. But then to get them loaned for that one, they had him contract the bean. She wanted somebody sold. It was a lady banker in her hometown that was really good to Dad, and she wanted know that he had so much income coming in to make the fall payment. So I think he planted his first crop of beans there and contracted them for like 3 something.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the year beans went to 13. So it was a bad deal anyway. But so my brother and my dad were down here and they were heading home and there was a storm coming. And so I sat by my uncle's just 2.5 miles north here. And Kevin said it hailed and it just wiped, everything was cleaned off. Nobody had insurance then like we do now. So the way my brother tells it, I don't know, Dad probably wouldn't agree. I know Dad was always the optimist, but Kevin thinks that might have broke my dad because he had so many thousands of bushels of beans contracted at 3.
Yep.
To actually deliver them, we waited to buy $13 beans, plus had no insurance. So Kevin said the storm got abated enough so they could see, and they started heading south, and it was quite a moment because the whole future, whatever had happened 2 miles down the road, was where the future was headed. So they got here, and they had hail here, but it wasn't a disaster. I think it was maybe a 20%. I don't know the exact number, but it wasn't the disaster that it was a couple miles north. So I don't know if you knew that. That's part of your history about.
I've heard.
Maybe might not have been farming today if that hailstorm would have hit.
Yeah, I think Kevin's told me that a few times.
And I'm probably, I don't remember exactly, but that was the gist of it. That the hail in the wrong spot would have been a pretty devastating at that time to the family farm. So anyway, I'm sure everybody's got some. Your whole history is always. There's some days that can be major turning points,
Yep.
and that was one of them. So he was able to fill his contracted beans, and it all obviously it all worked. But so yeah, that's how we kind of got. A lot of our land is in this area, and this really wasn't our original area, but it was just for the land was for sale and it was cheaper.
Yep. No, I think that's something that a lot of my viewers I know have mentioned in the past is you guys don't live on your farm. No, we're one of the few people that
So
have to drive 10 minutes to go farm every day.
Starting as a young boy, every day it's about 12, 14 miles. That was every day we came here. It was just you'd get in the car, and that was just part of our day. And that's why we started tiling too, because the tile paid off. We're tiling everywhere now, but this area was so wet. It seemed to us that it seemed like this area was so wet. So that is why we bought the first tile plow.
Well, I know Grandpa. He has maps of this township before any tile whatsoever.
Yeah,
and it was amazing how much of it was water.
In fact, there was the road we travel every day had about the whole section that was a lake.
Huh.
Just down here a mile and a half.
Yeah. So the first people that came to this area wrote in their journals, what was it? The area is swamp, will never be usable, or will never be sufficient.
So then
for
it's
anything.
better yet on this farm. So Dad, years later, 20 years later, we have an auction for somebody.
Yep.
So they're talking, and he's talking with one of the relatives that were there for sale day. So he goes, "So you farm too, Dad?" "So yeah, I farm." "So where do you farm at?" "Oh, we farm down in so and so." And so it come to find out, the guy that was at the auction had lived on this farm for a couple of years.
Okay.
He says, "You farm that so and so swamp?" He said, "We got horses stuck out there." He said, "Somewhere there's planks out there." He said, "We had horses. We had to get planks under them so we could get them out." Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that was the story. They lived here for 2 years, and it was so wet they decided there was better places to try to make a living. So that is it's still not our best farm, but it's got average soil types, but it's done very well. But there's a little story behind all of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, then you actually bought that 40 of it, right?
Yeah, I bought that.
There's kind of a little 40 that juts out on it.
Oh, my dad and uncle owned it together.
Okay.
And then as my uncle was selling off. And it was, my first 40 is on the south end of this farm, which don't know if I bought it from my uncle or my dad, but Dad's. I had zero net worth, but that was better than most of the farmers at the time. So I could actually,
negative, yeah.
I could actually get a loan with the land as collateral because I was 15, 14. But yeah, so my first 40 that I bought is on this end of the farm. And then I bought some on the north end of this farm too, as my uncle sold some more off. So yeah, that is kind of the history of this
Yeah.
farm anyway, this area, and your family. So one more story. This used to be our office. There's a wall here. So we have a corn head for sale.
Okay.
This was,
What year was this?
I'm guessing it was in the 80s. I was in junior high school. So all day long, whiteout, snowstorm coming, whiteout, snowstorm, whiteout, snowstorm. So, and obviously, as you said, we're so many miles from home. So these guys wanted to come look at this corn head my brother had for sale.
Yep.
And of course, the warning area, that's all they talk about is the storm that's coming. So they look at the corn head, they look at it, and they look at it, and they look at it. Yeah, we think we'll take it. So of course, then we had to load the corn head, and we're rushing and rushing and rushing. And they had the old Donahue trailer that went on the ground, and
Yep.
we were just getting it pulled up, and a snowstorm hit. And we said, thank you, and we hit the road, Kevin and I. And we made it a half mile. And it's like, this ain't gonna work. So we do get turned around, we get back here, and of course they're still chaining their load by feel. So anyway, the four of us spent the night in this office.
I have not heard this one.
And that was the coldest night of my life. We did have an electric heater, but it was cold. In fact, I think then Kevin, somewhere in the middle of the night, we went in and turned that blast heater
Yep.
around so it would blow against the wall. And I was sleeping on the desk, so that did help. They were on chairs, but yeah, that was a long night. I was just glad the snowstorm, I think by mid-morning it went down enough that we could make it home. But yeah, no,
I had not heard that you had to sleep the night in this thing.
yeah, I spent the night there. Yeah, we all did. It was
That was before cell phones?
we had landline here.
Oh, you did have a landline
There's a
here.
phone right there.
Oh, there is. Look at that. Huh.
I think we even had a TV. Yeah, we had a TV, a little.
Bunny ears?
My mom had wanted somewhere, a little, bunny ears. We kind of got Channel 12, kind of. So yeah, that was, we had a couch. I think there was a couch. Yeah. I don't think the couch lasted too long, but yeah, there was a few chairs. And kitchen table.
You fit a kitchen table, a couch, chairs, and a desk in this thing?
I think I'm wrong about the couch. I think the couch got taken out real early. There's cupboards back in that corner, fridge, and a table. Yeah, obviously we haven't. After we moved out, keeping this real.
The upkeep on
Well,
this.
the roof collapsing, we had park fence overhead, so they started to collapse as the water came down on this. And like I said, it was a better building. We would have replaced
The beams.
the roof, but it was just never. It wasn't worth it. For the doors never worked for the darn. It would have taken a new door. So. It is what it is, I guess.
I didn't know you guys had the winch.
Yeah, it was like for lawnmowers because obviously this building was so weak that
Yeah.
we never pulled on anything heavy with that. Always when you did, you were always watching the beam because the beams on this building compared to the other building are paper thin. So
All right.
that's the history.
All right.